Hey there, it's Krista Watson here from Krista Quilts, back with another free motion quilting video. So in today's episode, we're going to learn how to quilt wavy chevrons, one of the designs from my book, 99 Machine Quilting Designs. Now in the book, I actually talk about how you can quilt it using walking foot techniques, but in this video, I'm going to show you how to do it a different way, free motion. The really cool thing about my book is that several of the designs can be quilted either way. You can try out both techniques and see what works for you. Be sure to grab something to sketch out the design with and some practice fabric and batting if you want to quilt along with me. Then stick around to the end of this video where I go more in depth about how to quilt wavy chevrons on a real quilt just like the one shown behind me. So let's get to it. Wavy chevrons is design number 19 from the book. So to sketch out my wavy chevrons, first of all, I'm going to draw out a couple of lines that act like the seam lines on my quilt. And so I'm going to stitch in between. I'm going to start with a little wiggly line that looks like a little V shape, and I'm going to go back and forth. So if I do an odd number of lines, I continue going in the same direction. So I'm going to do another little chevron. I can do these upside down or right side up. It doesn't really matter. And the spaced chevron is the design that I'm drawing out first, where you can definitely see that there is space in between each design. I can fill that in with another design if I want to. Now, if I want to do a tighter design, I can do what's called a packed chevron, where I start off with the same idea, but I'm going to do half of another line like this, up and down and back and forth. So the stroke is basically 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then I'll continue. I'm not trying to match it up with the line above me, but you could if you wanted to. Let's do another one, 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then back and forth. Now you can do these horizontal, as I've just shown you, or I'm going to erase that. I could actually stitch them vertically as well. So I'm just going to show you how that looks a little bit different. And the important thing is, as I'm doing it, I'm doing my 1, and my 2, and my 3, I am forming these wiggly lines just by wiggling my sandwich, my little practice sandwich, as I go. Now you could absolutely do this with a walking foot or a free motion. For me, I actually prefer to do this design free motion because it's a lot faster and a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to turn. Let's see, maybe I'll do these going the opposite way. And this time again, I'm going to do the packed design. So packed or spaced out, whatever you want to do. And each design is going to look different. I'm not trying to make them all the same, but I am trying to fill in all the space. So I'll just continue wiggling until the pattern is finished. To free motion quilt wavy chevrons, my feed dogs are dropped, and I'm using a specialty free motion foot so that I can move in any direction. Now I've drawn out lines representing my seam lines on my sample. That's going to help me keep each motif roughly the same size as I stitch. However, as I form each individual design, I'm not trying to space them out evenly or make them all look exactly perfect. I'm also not trying to make each point touch exactly. I'm going to let it go a little more organic. So to form the wavy lines, I'm basically wiggling my practice sample a little bit and letting it just be very organic as I stitch. Each one is going to look a little bit different. Notice how I stop with the needle down and move my hands to get a better position. This all becomes very natural the more you practice. I recommend stitching an odd number of lines to keep the design flowing in the same direction. So this is how this works. I'm going to stitch out wiggly line number 1, then wiggly line number 2, and finally wiggly line number 3 to complete the design. Then I'll continue with the same sequence as I go. As you can see, I'm leaving a gap in between each chevron. If I decided that I wanted to add more chevrons, I could come back and do a second pass of this design in the opposite direction, or I could just fill in the spaces with another free motion design. You can quilt one row of chevrons at a time and cut thread, or you could make it continuous by dropping down to the next section below and then just continuing the pattern. One of the reasons it's so important to test out your designs on a practice sample is to understand how to move around the area that you're quilting without getting lost or stuck. Be sure to refer to the book for tips on how to quilt this same design using a walking foot instead of free motion like I'm doing, and then try out both techniques to see which one you prefer. In this close-up section, you can get a better look at how I'm forming each design. So this time, I'm going to stitch packed wavy chevrons by nestling in another chevron right next to the previous one I just stitched. Here's how I do that. On the next chevron, I'll stitch the first of 3 wiggly lines to create half of the V or chevron shape. Then I'll come back and fill in the empty space with the second set of wiggly lines. Finally, I'll quilt the 3rd wiggly line in both directions to complete the design. So make sure you watch this a few times. You can stop and pause and go back to it so that you can see how I'm forming each design until you get the hang of it. Again, quilting an odd number of lines will keep me moving down the row. So you could even quilt 5 or even 7 lines in each chevron, depending on the amount of space you need to fill. If you quilted an even number of lines, you'd go back to your original starting point and you'd need to stop and cut thread or backtrack before forming the next design. So stick with an odd number and you're good to go. Gloves help me grip the quilt as I stitch, so that helps me maintain control while quilting. This time, I'll stitch the next row continuously. So I'm basically stitching a mirror image of each design just to experiment and play and see what that looks like. It's really fun how some of these designs can kind of take on new shapes when you put them together. So you can quilt the designs up and down like I've shown you so far, or you can rotate the quilt to stitch them from side to side. Neither technique is better than the other, but just do what feels most comfortable for you. You can also stitch this design at a larger or smaller scale, depending on the areas you need to cover on your quilt. Now I'm just going to continue stitching my wavy chevrons until I've filled in all the spaces. Here's my finished sample showing loose and packed wavy chevrons together. Isn't that such a fun design to do? It's one of my favorites whenever I'm quilting a quilt that has borders on it. So that's exactly what I did on the quilt behind me. This one is called Loose Weave from my newest book called How Do I Quilt It? Now this book is really cool because it gives you 9 different quilts that you can make. I'm basically giving you 3 different patterns and you can quilt them 3 different ways with 3 different color schemes and 3 different quilting plans. So on this quilting plan, I quilted those wavy chevrons in the borders and I made it a little bit bigger to fit the width of the quilt. The cool thing about this design is there's absolutely no marking, and you can see a little bit more of how I quilted it on another quilt that I did the same thing. This one is called Swanky Spirals. In this little video that you're watching, I think it adds just the right amount of texture, and you've seen this quilt several times. If you're enjoying this, be sure to check out the description box for a link to a longer video showing how I quilted more of this Swanky Spirals quilt. And speaking of more fun projects to work on, be sure to check out all of my books and all of my patterns so that you can really put everything I'm teaching you all together into the same quilt. I love to be with you every step of the way and be your quilting cheerleader. As always, make sure you leave a comment if you have any questions, and I'm here to help you. Until the next video, happy quilting.